time is money, and it's the one thing. I mean, if we can find the labor, we can throw more labor at it. If we can find the money, we can throw more money at it. We can't find the time. It's just not a thing. And man, each one of these, I don't know any of them that aren't in an arms race of some sort. The data centers are in an arms race to open up and get processing because, AI is a fad, so they're not going to need those. Oh, yeah, wait, no. And then, you have NVIDIA and others in the chip manufacturing and pushing to have that availability in the United States. Also looking at supplying our own batteries for EV cars. On this week's show, MCAA Fab in review and news from the road with Jonathan Marsh.
From groundbreaking innovations to industry-shaking updates, this is your construction technology news of the week. Join us with our guest of the week as we dig into the latest news shaping the future of construction.
All right, it's a special episode. I'm on the road. John's at home. We're going to just get together. We were just on stage together at MCAA Fab. We wanted to do a little recap. Wanted to talk a little news. Jonathan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. Really, really good. I'm really happy to be home after a long run of travel. I'll tell you what, anytime you're doing a business, you have a business you have to run, all of that travel's fun because you get all these new ideas. But if you go from event to event to event, it's like new ideas, no time to process, new ideas, no time to process, new ideas. Okay, get home. Okay, want to process everything, you disrupt your business. Like you almost need a couple days off after talking to that many people to just sit there and try to take all of the ideas that you've heard and consolidate them into stuff that's good. Cause it was an exciting trip. I got to go, I did a workshop at Mika around NFPA 70B and NFPA 70D, which are really, I mean, they are possible bonanzas for service and maintenance on the electrical side. Just really gives them a way to make having safe and good or electrical maintenance plans part of every business rather than before where like some businesses would do it. Not a lot of businesses did it. Now it's a requirement. Now we're going to actually see, businesses stepping up to that next level of we don't accept downtime at our business, even if we're a hospital, and really building the planning around that. Going from MCA Fabrication and that crowd to the Nika crowd is always fun. Those are two different organizations. And we're also dealing with two different groups because you got the supervisors and the foremen. And this year you were up there on stage with me when we were polling the audience. So that keeps going up. And we also had 50% new people there, meaning like more than half the people that went to MCA Fabrication had never gone before. And it wasn't from one size company. I came back and I did the data thing, Jeff, where I kind of segmented and looked. No, it was from everybody from the biggest companies to the smallest companies are sending new people there. And it's not that maybe someone in the company didn't go last year. It's that it was so good.
Are you trying to reach the innovators and decision makers in construction technology? Then look no further than sponsoring the ConTech Crew. That's right, we're taking new advertisers. Email us at advertising@thecontechcrew.com to learn more.
Yeah, it grew a little bit. They sent some new people, lots of new insight. And I love that, man, because we did do that. And it's so much fun. And thanks to Sean McGuire for letting us do it and get up there and for the MCA Fab community for engaging in the process, because what we did was so cool to have all those people in the room to be polling them with questions, but then sending them back into their little groups of tables to talk and then kind of report back. Cause we keep saying this here on the show. I keep saying it everywhere I go. Teaching on stage is one thing when you're trying to teach somebody something new, et cetera, but really unlocking the collective intelligence from the room is what we should be doing when we get all of these people together. Because like you said, there was people with 5-person shops to huge multi-fabrication shops, a couple of different ones and some with multi-trade in it. I mean, you look at like the leader with
multi-trade.
Yeah, or with multi-trade. And then you got, the leader like Binsky, showing off theirs, which is always a cool thing for Fab, right? Go to one of the places and tour it. You had a little fun in that too, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm wearing my Binsky blue today. There's some Binsky on the back of this big.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking. Binsky did something really interesting. So Binsky has always been sort of one of the leaders in the way that they think about how Fab should be done. And they started thinking like a manufacturer. And that was cool because when you're a contractor, you think in drawings and dimensions, right? We get drawings with dimensions. We get a specification book. What we don't get is a process. That's like means and methods. That's what we decide. And Binsky is the first one to say, no, 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 wait. In our fab shop, in that controlled environment, and even in our field, we want to start giving you some of that process, some of the needs and methods. So you not only know what you're supposed to build, but we give you some insight into how we expect you to build it. And it sounds like a little thing, but it cascades. Like there's a cascading effect. As soon as you go from, hey, you guys build it however you want, to, hey, we're going to give you some insight into how we want it built, how we want this process to work, you become, again, closer to that industrialized ideal, closer to that manufacturing ideal that Binsky has always been very focused on.
They hit a couple things in there that were interesting, right? Like for me, traveling as much as we do, right? We're looking for those new ideas and we're looking for those nuggets. What I thought was interesting is we've always seen process maps and how you're flowing things through a shop, but what the team at Binsky has done is like they've articulated that weird spot in between something's being procured over here and fabricated and then moved over to another station, whatever it might be, and identifying the time in between to capture the entire time. Just kind of, I mean, it seems simple, but it had me thinking. It's like all these shows we go to, right? They just have you thinking more and more about what am I missing? What can I do to improve? And how can I, share? On that light, what are some of the takeaways, the things that grabbed you at Fab? People who didn't get a chance to go would benefit from hearing on the show today.
I'm going to go all the way back to when Benham was a part of this and talking about building out that innovation group. The Conovate group, in my mind, was one of the best put together innovation groups I had ever seen. And they really did think about it like sort of the brains for innovation within their company. So, like, if you have something where you're thinking about a new process or you would like to try something new, or even if you have something ultra challenging, they have a place for you to take that. You take it to the Geek Squad and the Geek Squad goes, tries it out. And the amount of resources that they had to work with was actually adequate. Like so often you go in and the innovation group's there, but no one knows about it. You definitely don't talk to those people. And they usually have minimal resources to accomplish what they're trying to do. This was sort of the other stage, man. Like the people they had were about communication. The people knew, hey, I got a problem. I can take it off my hand by handing it over to the people over in Convey. And some of what they were coming up with, like even, they had redesigned entire systems with new materials, with new process. We talked about design for manufacturing and assembly, but we don't talk about designing just for materials. Let's go look at the material. Did we get the material right? And that Connovate group, that innovation group was doing that. So like, Benham years ago when he's like, you have to have this. You have to have your mad scientists. You have to make them a real thing. And Binsky's done that, and I think it's paid dividends in the way that they work.
It has, and it's funny because Bob was in the team at Binsky and Bob Snyder were very early believers in what James had to say, and they picked up on the nuance because a lot of people created those groups, but they didn't fund it and they didn't give it a process and they didn't make it a part of the company to be problem solvers, to bring the problems over, fund them, and give them the people and the space to do it. So it is really cool to see Bob doing that and the team doing that. And then, the new group taking it on. For me, some of the big takeaways came in the opening talk and talking about just the massive amounts of data center work. And I'll call it the disparate nature of the distribution of the work. We have areas of our country that are experiencing downturns because of where they are physically and what the markets might be like and other influences. And then you have other areas that are just overwhelmed and can't even, I mean, they are drowning and putting huge amounts of dollars into getting people to show up and do the work. So there was this theme. It was interesting too, is like, he talked about railways. Like there is an interest from large owners to extend rail services close to fabrication shops or vice versa. Put your fab near a railway to deal with the logistics of pushing prefabricated and modular materials to new places. Because look, let's be honest, I'll give a shout out. I'm going to be on stage with Joseph Lanzell down the road, and he's famous for saying, listen, we don't have as much of a labor problem as we do a labor distribution problem. It's not evenly distributed. And what could we do to handle that? Now, some of y'all can and it was really interesting to have Britton on the show a couple of weeks ago and then go to this event and see him in person, and then you and I get up on the stage and talk about it and have that light bulb of like, yo, man, he's on to something with this. If you guys don't remember Build Factory, they're building a distribution system for fabrication to connect those fabricators across the country to the areas where they need the work, right? Where they need the fab.
It's legit the industrial revolution, right? Contractors don't need a distribution system because we have a site. We manufacturers do. And as we become manufacturers, all of a sudden, like, well, crap, we need railways. It really changes fundamentally, like what your problem statement is when you go from being an on-site contractor to being an industrialized contractor to being a true manufacturer. And so, while we were there, and again, you can't get into the details on this as much because people don't want to talk detail, but we have some of the crossover contractors are where they've crossed over completely. They have product cells, and a product cell produces a single product at high speed with minimal labor. And they're starting to do that again because distribution is a challenge. And, I mean, it was exciting to see. I also saw the disparity. And the disparity, I come from when I was an engineer at HF Lens, I was healthcare and education all the way. And so when there was a disruption to healthcare education, I felt it first. Like all of my work dried up. And I think we're seeing that right now. We're seeing like a lot of the health, education money, as most colleges have shrunk in enrollment to begin with. A lot of the grants have also sort of shrunk in the last year or so based on a lot of different factors. But like education and healthcare used to be the sort of the core areas for a lot of contractors, and it's in a very obvious shrink. Maybe healthcare we're starting to get back out of it. There was like a year there where it looked bad, but definitely education's shrinking. Meanwhile, data centers are exploding.
Yeah, there's a connection there though. Like one of the things is that higher education and the changes in higher education funding, a lot of higher education is healthcare, right? You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
they're very much teaching hospitals, research hospitals, et cetera. So there's that effect there.
They're
But you're
kissing
right.
cousins.
Yeah, and then you talk about the data center boom and the battery factories and the advanced manufacturing and just the needs that those facilities have is insane.
There's no architectural interest in a lot of those things. And I think that's the biggest difference is like when they talked about us doing offsite manufacturing, they're like, oh, we don't want these, houses that all look the same or buildings that all look the same. And this is somewhere where they're like, no, we want the buildings to all look exactly the same. The perfect storm of a lot of work that wants it to look exactly the same, handed down to a contractor. And I'm going to give our contractors like the big high five. When you're at MCAA Fabrication, you're dealing with the leading edge of contractors. They are the ones that understand the technology that make offsite manufacturing work. Because you can want to do it, but a lot of these people have been doing it for 10, 15 years. They're ready for this boom. You're going to have a hard time catching up.
You can't come off the couch and catch this wave real quick. And we are spoiled, man. It's something that I do have an opportunity and experience to see because I travel so much into little pockets of areas. Is that like the other thing I'll go on double down on Joseph Lanzell is I still think, and this I forget, I think it was Brett Young that we gave credit for, the innovation is here, it's just not evenly distributed. I know that came from somebody else, but it's way less distributed than I thought. And I think the gap between the haves and the have-nots is getting bigger. And AI in general is accelerating a lot of that. Now, honestly, we can dive into this now or later or never, but eventually you and I will be diving into it. There's a balance here on the AI side of things that's confusing folks. And again, we can talk about that later because I did have a nice discussion with some folks about it. But ultimately, whether it's fabrication, whether it's technology, it's innovative process. If you're on the couch right now doing it the old way and you think you can get up off the couch and run that marathon, you're going to be hurting. And I don't know that you're going to finish. You know what I mean?
From a marketing side, what you were talking about with the AI, that I think the nice part of it for me is it's got a lot of people off the couch. It was disturbing enough or helpful enough, one or the other, to get a lot of people off the couch, and that needed to happen. And I've watched people gain a great deal of confidence from AI because it can get to 80% so fast. And while they will still struggle, like everybody else, to make the technology work correctly, getting them off the couch, getting them engaged, there's a plus to that. I mean, I give COVID a little bit of a plus because it got us all to digital collaboration from the way that we used to want to work. And when you look at what's going on now in construction, all of the people that doubled down on that, all of the people that said, it's fine, stay home, we'll get digital, communication working, we'll get offshore working, we'll erase geographic constraints on our workforce. Those people are getting the benefits of that right now. All the people that were like, nope, you got to come into the office, they're going to have some struggles as they get to this point to, like you said, the innovation's not distributed evenly, the labor's not distributed evenly, the supply chain's not able to distribute evenly. So like, we've had some pluses, but definitely some minuses.
You can go back and listen to the old shows. We said this then. We knew it was a major swing, and we knew everybody's like, oh, it's going to be remote. It's going to be this way forever. And we were all like, whoa, 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 whoa. Honestly, like this enabled a lot of things to happen that we totally needed to happen, right? Like we need thought. We don't need to just, no offense, but you and I don't need to go sit together and find a way to sit together and record a bunch of episodes when we can use this wonderful tool to do this. We can collaborate this way. There's certain parts of our projects and things that shouldn't be let go down the road. We should meet, right? And we should quote unquote face to face. But it's swinging back the other way. And what I like about the great groups that are taking this to heart is they're thinking it through. Why is this one important to be together as humans? Because we can do these things that the remote just doesn't do well. And we predicted that back in the COVID days that we would get here. And it's great to see that we are here that way and thinking it through that way. And you said one more thing that they did say on stage, and this is an interesting thing, is our serial builders out there. I'm talking about these people that are building these data centers and advanced manufacturing facilities, et cetera. The Googles, the Metas, the Intels, the, whoever else, NVIDIA, whoever else it might be. They're not looking at us as regional workforce. They're not looking for northeast, north. They are looking at us as one entire workforce, boundaryless. And that's another important shift in the mindset, because we know, and we've talked about this on the show, it's all fine and good when anybody in the chain says they want to do something until it gets to the owner. And well, that's when things get done, right? In safety, hey, we're going to grade you on your EMR record. And if your EMR is not X, you ain't working for us. Wow, everybody's EMR and safety cultures really significantly changed. So I think we're on the precipice of that now, too.
I think one of the things, it is a new market for us, right? It is. And we're not, and for all you small guys out there that are like, oh my gosh, this is tough, we're not going to get B in time, you can still get on board. But also realize that all of those cuts to colleges and hospitals and everything means that your service and maintenance group, if you don't have one, you should get one right now, because they're going to try to stay in buildings that needed renovated 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and they're just going to keep staying there. So like when we look at, these contractors that honestly you don't see a lot of at fabrication, that are running the smaller shops, that are running the smaller maintenance group, there's still a lot of work out there for you. But now is the time to get ready for that too. Because as soon as these big guys get done chewing on what they have, they're going to come down and look at that too. So I feel like, again, we're on the threshold of a lot of things. I think AI makes it feel more today than it needs to necessarily. It does feel like everything's going to happen tomorrow. And as we get into the news, I think I'm going to step on that just a little bit and say that I feel like they're on a more predictable timeline than people are making it out to be. Because I don't know about you, Jeff. I haven't seen anything that's really surprised me about AI in like 3 years. I've seen them promise to do something and then either hit it or get close. But it's always like on their timeline. Like they're always telling us 12 months ahead. Hey, if we think in about 12 months, we're going to be able to do this or do that. And it's always like in about 12 months, they're able to do this or that.
Maybe a little bit. And, I am literally not the naysayer. I would call it the, hey, calm it down, calm it down. Like hype is there for a reason. There's a hype cycle for a reason, but also, thinking through any massive change like this does require, a lot of thought and time. And clickbait sells, right? So if you're a futurist and you want to talk about the world and et cetera, it's a great time. And by the way, phenomenally powerful technology to pontificate on. SaaS was cool, but it was not this pontificatable, if that's a word. I think I'm going to create that word, pontificatable. And I will say too, some of the things too that allowed it to get where it is, and we talked about this, is that it's getting so good. The models are in their training and just the ones you use, on a day to day now that people are using more and more just in their personal lives or just playing around with. It's getting so good at natural language processing that it feels more and more like it's learning, like it's a human. And it's like, no, 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 no. It's scary good at making you think that. But honestly, there's a lot going on in the background, and we could dive into all that. But on the other side of things, not everybody has to be a fabricator. That was an interesting
Right.
outcome for me. And we've said this from the beginning, like a lot of you are really good out there with your labor, and taking on and building a fabrication facility is a difficult thing. So you don't have to make that decision. Your decision can be, we are going to be the best installers of prefabricated and modular equipment in our space as anyone. And oh, by the way, like you said, it's a circular economy, and we're going to service this stuff. So we're going to know how to service it. We're going to focus on the as builts. We're going to focus on capturing what goes in. We're going to focus on that side of the construction to service and the bridge and be great at that. And I know you've mapped a lot of that out, but I just wanted to bring that up, is that there's a lot of big decisions for people to make here. And none of us can tell you which one is you. We have to say, it fits your DNA to go this route or do this thing.
I think it really is just, you need to decide whether you want to be a manufacturer, because what we're saying is that the pieces that you received as an installer and as a labor person, as a builder, are just going to get there. So like the manufacturers are going to deliver you larger and larger parcels. You're going to have less and less labor to install them. Is that where you want to live? If you want to live somewhere else in between those two, and I've seen some people double down on the, I'm an installer, I don't care where I get it from. And so they're looking at every modular shop they can to buy stuff from, like again, back to Britain's Fab, to say, I no longer care about how big puzzle pieces are. I'm good at putting puzzle pieces together. I will buy those modules from you. The problem is, if you look over time, in my mind, you have to say, where does the market look like in 30 years? Is there still space to keep my business afloat, whatever my business is? So does my business be a little manufacturing or a lot? So if you need none at all, and I go service side, everybody's been talking about facilities maintenance as the answer for construction's future for a long time, because there's so much money that goes into building after it's built versus when it's getting built. And no one focuses on that. Now maybe it might be your time to focus on that, because
Yeah.
at the beginning of the supply chain, it looks like the distributors, manufacturers are eating up more of that towards the contractor. So maybe at the end we start looking there. I think still, with the labor shortage, it's a very healthy thing to be a contractor right now. I think that's a
Yeah.
very healthy market to be in. There's just,
So
not a
here's
lot of people know how to
here's
build.
Yeah, not a lot of people know how to build. Here's another one though. We got to call out Jeff Elwell and the team at EM Duggan, now also having the arm of Duggan Innovative Solutions. There's another opportunity too. If you've, sort of nailed your area, and let's say your area is experiencing, a little bit of a downturn and looking for other ways to generate profit and to help, he's gone about, not that EM Duggan's actually having that problem. I'm just saying that this is a great way to look at it. Dis Duggan Innovative Solutions, they've built and really maintain a technology infrastructure on top of a manufacturing infrastructure. And they're now taking that and selling that consulting services across the board to other people, because there's such a gap in that ability and that understanding of the workflows. So it was cool to see, Jeff going through their whole progression and then talking about how they're looking at technology, how they're looking at building and stitching their own things together, how they look at APIs, how they look at what you use. And so that was another cool one too, is there's an alternative there in the consulting side of things to go out and help fabricators, say, in those areas that are just getting crushed and need visibility. Because that's the other thing. If you don't have visibility into your shop, Bob Schneider said this real well, that what was it, that 9 cent angle, whatever it was, is now $9. Yeah, when it was 9 cents, I didn't care. It's $9. I freaking care now.
You understand the life cycle cost on any piece of material versus the upfront cost, and it can be night and day. And it does make, like when people first started fabricating, they thought steel and Unistrut were expensive things, and then all of a sudden, like, no, that's all free. That's all free. Just build, because they looked at the life cycle cost of some of what they're building and say, nah, I can spend more money on materials because I'm losing it on labor. I'm losing it on material handling. And there's always a pinch point. I think what Duggan did that was cool is when the company I worked at, Spader, first got into fabrication, it got into fabrication as a big investment that they were making when they were at average production numbers. So they're like, hey, we're not having a tough year. We're going to reinvest in the shop. I think that's that idea of always being able to look and say, what's the next part of my business going to be? And I think saying that it's technology, like 7 to 10 years ago, maybe not the best idea. Right now, heck yeah, you should be looking at, does my company have best in class technology and how can we get it? And if we do have it, how can I further leverage it? Because Duggan's going, we're already best in class at technology. We're going to start selling that technology that we already do understand, and we're going to start developing new technologies based on being out ahead enough to see what's coming next. And I,
Yeah.
I think that's where they were sitting is they were technologically out front. So they're like, all of the problems that a lot of you are struggling with, we feel like we fixed a lot of those. There's still problems for sure, but like we feel like we have those. Now we're on to these next ones. So we'll share what we've learned thus far for a price as consulting services. And I think that's actually a really good idea.
It is. It's a really good idea. It's really important for businesses, especially. And they're going to start in the mechanicals, but I don't imagine they're going to stay there in the end because a lot of this is
Oh, it's
ubiquitous.
it's 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 already over into. I will tell you, it's already over into electrical. Sheet metal's already on board. Like it didn't take us long to get all the trades. What will be interesting is I'm waiting for the first GC to stumble in because
It'll
it's
be a
going to happen sooner or
self-performer of
later.
some sort, and it's going to
Yep.
happen. They're
Or
doing it.
a GC who's really building data centers and all they have is a bunch of subs that are MEP and they're struggling, this would be a way to get up to speed with those subs. I will tell you, and it's kind of rude to GCs, you sit down at the table and you do that assessment. How technologically advanced are you? And if you're way behind us, we're running this project for you. And we're doing it our way. And we're going to, eat your lunch a little bit during that process. So like from a GC standpoint, I think they were all right to be behind before, but if we get more industrialized, it's not all right anymore. You have to be
So
able to wrangle
I
that
want to
work.
pivot into that industrialization and get to our couple of articles
Oh
real
yeah, yeah,
quick. I want
yeah.
I want you to kick right into yours because I think you just segued yourself really beautifully into this one. So let everybody know what this article is and let's talk a little bit about it.
Okay, so US liquid natural gas builders are going modular to battle rising costs. So this was not unexpected at all. I think everybody who got into the modular space started looking and saying, wait, 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 we can build for everything. And so what's happening is they're one of those industries that's not looking at being architecturally different from anyone else. So they can start to modularize what they do for their processing. And they're saying, now that it's modularized, and we've gotten good at that because we knew we'd have to, now our sources for getting the modules, for getting our supplies for building our refineries, it can be vastly improved. Vastly improved. This article really underlines it. I'm not going to hit you with all the numbers. It does do a really good job of charting out and saying, here's the growth that we're seeing. Here's where they're buying their modules from. And it's not always us. We now have a bunch of people in fabrication that are focused on doing data centers. And we have a bunch of people that own data centers that are getting really good at dealing with people that build modules. So what's going to keep other people from building your modules? Is it going to be that you built them better? Is it going to be that? So I think we're moving into that world. And I think this article really underlined it for me, Jeff. Like, however, you remember back, when Amy Marks was talking about, hey, we're going to be buying our modules. And I haven't seen that happen yet, but this is the first article where I was like, yeah, this can happen. I wasn't worried about the buildings as much because they need to be pretty and represent somebody's vision. But my refinery certainly doesn't.
Yeah, I was going to say refineries, data centers, like advanced manufacturing facilities, they just are what they are. And if you can figure out how to modularize it and productize it and get it, and I mean, a number of things, right? We're seeing tariffs are where they are. We're seeing advancing labor wages go up. We're creating everything that we're seeing is creating uncertainty. And in our business, we cannot stand uncertainty, but more than that, we can't waste time. And that's something else in this article that I was looking at and reading between the lines is okay, you take a rising cost. Sure, it might cost us more if it's not coming from the United States. However, if we can guarantee that we know when it's coming and we can, dot our I's and cross our T's that the equipment's going to show up and we're going to be able to open when we're going to be able to open, okay, that's worth the money. I mean, if we can find the labor, we can throw more labor at it. If we can find the money, we can throw more money at it. We can't find the time. It's just not a thing. And man, each one of these, I don't know any of them that aren't in an arms race of some sort, right? The data centers are in an arms race to open up and get processing because AI is a fad, so they're not
Yep.
going to need those. Oh yeah, wait, no. And then you have Nvidia and others in the chip manufacturing and pushing to have that availability in the United States. Also looking at supplying our own batteries for EV cars. Like it's a lot going on, man. And so I like the article. I listened to Amy back then, and I believe we can do it. I don't believe we can do it at this scale the way we are right now. We gotta get into overdrive and get a lot of people off the couches and working together. And also though, we're seeing a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the industry and the mechanicals and electricals and a lot of super electricals out there. And you look at what is it? Quanta bought Cupertino, and then they bought DSI. And I mean, right there, man, you think about what we know about both of those organizations and their skill sets. That's a really powerful group under one house. When they get merged and start harnessing that collective information, that collective innovation, that's going to be some powerful stuff, man. So I'm with you. I love the article. I'm going to pivot you into, we got to talk AI, right? Of course we do.
Oh, yeah.
Google's DeepMind's new AI models can search the web to help robots complete tasks. So the new Gemini Robotics 1.5 models enable robots to carry out multi-step tasks and even learn from each other. So, and I don't like that we use the word learn. I would call it that they inform and train each other and they collaborate. And again, that seems like a human thing, but when I say collaborate, think about if you have all the cars on the road and we all had CBs and we could talk at computer speed, that would be collaborating and we wouldn't have as much traffic. It's the same kind of thing. The robotics and the models themselves now can maneuver through information, consume data, and change their direction, modify what they're doing. I'm trying really good here not to use human because they use, think multiple steps ahead. John, I don't think they're thinking multiple steps ahead. I think they are training and planning from a mechanical perspective that we're going beyond. But this is really interesting and powerful for, again, our fabrication shops, right? Because I again don't think they always love to show a humanoid robot. I again don't believe that that's what's going to happen. So when you get this model or get this article, guys, I want you to go down. There's this really great graphic in the middle where it's actually showing the smaller arms of the robot and then the agentic system and how it's working through thinking, tool use, planning. It's not thinking, it's training, it's tool use, it's planning out what it's going to do and it's feeding back, right? But if you look at those arms, you get the idea that, oh, this could be holding a welder. This could be doing this on a fab floor, very much like we see in automobile manufacturing, which is pretty advanced. I think this allows us because not everything, it's not like a car. Every part's perfect every time, same. We don't do it that way. So this may allow us to think about it. What do you think about this one, John?
Okay, so when you look at the video, what was the environment like? Like, was the environment really kind, meaning that everything's kind of laid out for you? You can see it, you can reach it, you can get to it. And no one's darting their hands in the way or moving stuff out of the way as you're doing that. And I have a kind of a level of that. Like, it starts at kind, where everything's normal and easy and data's all good, and goes to wicked, which is like our job site, where it's like we can control next to nothing. Like we have to get everybody kind of, it's production television versus reality TV. On production television, you give them a script, they read their script, they stand where they're supposed to stand. The props are there, they know what all the props are. So like they can manipulate that really prescriptively because they know everything about it. So I look at those little, like I looked at the video and I'm like, okay, so you know everything that's going to be in this already. Maybe you made some steps, but it's a relatively kind environment. This is what I expected. I expected you to be able to do this in a kind environment. I listened to her prompt and I was like, yeah, with that level of prescriptive prompt, like meaning I'm telling you exactly what I want and how to do it, I expect things. Where I'm going to be blown out of the water is when we no longer have to tell them as much and where we can just basically say what we want. Like, hey, I want you to pack for me and nothing else. She is like, oh, I want you to pack for me, pack this, and we're going there. And I'm like, okay, so you're giving a lot of instructions. And so we can't do that in the field. We can't do that at construction, at hit environments where everything changes, because we can say that, but then when somebody else walks on the set, or when the props are different, or when the scene changes, it's going to lose. So like, I feel like from a fab shop standpoint, what they have was where I expected them to be, not even further, because they basically told us 12 months ago, this is where they'd be. And they got here. So I'm like, good, you did what you said you do. But I'm not like freaked out yet. I do think that the idea of being able to train one set and then move it into other hardware is really cool, because that's something that really is necessary. We want to be able to train things on hundreds of thousands of permutations, but we want it to be able to synchronize with other, like if you bought a set of arms for your shop, I don't want it to just know what it's done in my shop. I want it to know how to manipulate things from thousands of different shops all over the place. So,
Yeah, and
just
that's
like a
that's a
worker, like,
unique piece too. Yeah, a worker
yeah,
who's got experience doing hot work, doing different types of work, and they come in and you're hiring them to do this, but they're like, "Hey, in hot work we did this, or in this we did this, and hey, we welded this way." And I'm with you. And those again, I'm with you that I think they'll get better and better at getting into those weirder and weirder environments. But I also don't know that we'll ever get to that point. Or sure, you can probably argue I'll probably be long gone by then, but it'll happen. Um, but for now, I think multiple trainings and the ability to do that's awesome. So
I think the one thing on the article that I thought was cool is the actual dexterity of the robots is getting better. So like robot dexterity is something that, like, if you actually get a robot arm, what you're going to find out, like the first two things, there's like, it's not strong enough and it doesn't have good dexterity. Like it can't compete with us. Our dexterity is insane. But this is starting to look better. I did like that. Like I felt like that was on the edge of being more than I expected it to be. And I've seen that a couple times where, whether it's a software or hardware improvement, they're getting better dexterity out of these things.
well,
By the
yeah, and
way,
I
they
want
talk about visuals. Did you hear what they're doing? To basically, they're like, yeah, it's going to be a visual. Then I'm going to turn it into text, and then I'm going to send it to a chat engine. It's like, well, that's cheap. All right,
that's
we don't
cheap.
process that way. That would be like me thinking about everything in this room in a language format. That's a lot of extra energy. Our brain doesn't do that. I wouldn't expect an AI brain to have to do that.
I wouldn't either, and I think it would overpower it in the end. The other one, though, that's interesting is you mention it, and it's something for people to just think about is prompting. What's interesting is those custom made or purpose built solutions. That's a lot of what they're doing is they're building the prompting and all of that crazy particular language underneath and letting you say, do this. And underneath it's processing all of this info. So again, it's the progression and we're seeing where it goes. I'm going to pivot us though. Last one, and it's going to be a quick one because we don't want to go too far because he's new, but a little announcement this past week and right before we came onto the show. So it'll be a couple weeks from now when this comes out. But this is near and dear to us here at the crew. We have interviewed Tui Kortemash on many occasions. He's been wonderful to the show. Personally, been someone I look to in the industry, and he's going to step down. Procore names first new CEO in over 2 decades. Tui will be stepping back. He's not stepping out. And I think that's important. And we'll talk about why I think that's important. But Tui's going to be stepping out and taking a new role. And his successor has finally been named. And I apologize. I haven't been able to, I think it's Ajay Gopal. And he's like 35 years of experience, most recently at Ansys and growing them. But he's got Hewlett Packard in his background and a few others. And I really think it marks an important time in Procore's growth. A lot of us don't think of Procore as a startup, but I would say if you've been close enough to Procore to this point, there's a lot of startup mentality still there. And I don't think we want to lose that. Like there's an incredible culture element that goes on there, and they've dedicated a lot to it. And I think this allows Tui to stay focused on that and stay focused on what he cares about. He cares about this industry far more than most CEOs that have made it to the point he has. He could sail off into the distance and probably put his feet up, and he hasn't, and he's still not gonna see him in a couple of weeks at Groundbreak. Excited for Groundbreak as usual this year. It'll be we'll have already passed our Unbound, and don't worry, we'll have a little recap on that for you guys. But yeah, I just think it's an important moment for the company itself to go through its next phase of evolution. And not every founder can do it. Now, Tui's done it from the beginning and through multiple steps. So that's been impressive. But it is time, I think. And I'll be real interested. So, Jay, you've got an offer to come sit down with me anytime you want and have a conversation. But, John, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, Procore's been a leader in our industry for a long time.
I think it's really big shoes. On top of that, though, like you look at what Ansys did, and you look at what he did while he was there. Like, and I had to go read articles. First, like he has a very good analytic background. Like really started off as an engineer. I felt he was talking about sort of his progression of really adding EQ to his tool belt, because if you start out as an early engineer, your EQ is not as important. Okay. And then as you progress, it becomes really important. And you can even see from like his writing and some of the other stuff as I read through that he's really doubled down on that and understands it. But Ansys, built simulations. And if you look at Procore and you look at the disruption of AI, and Flows just call AI sort of data mining, because there's a level at which it's still at. It really is going to be about how much can we simulate with the data we have and how much good prediction we give to our clients. And so I feel like there's a little bit of that in his background and really understanding the power of the digital simulation, the power of digital. Like Ansys was a program that did calculations for engineering, and he actually, while he was there, you look at the growth. This is a scale guy. This is a take it and scale it, and he scaled it across the board, from aligning culture to doing acquisitions. His early life was with a private equity firm, which is totally going to give him the right set of skills to deal with today's contractor who is being more and more bought up by private equity. So like understanding that, I think it's a really good move. Like always, I think these are people that are so much more aggressive than me. I feel like I can do a lot of different things. I 100% can't do those jobs, because that is like, Jeff, it's just a different mindset. But looking at the background, looking at where they're at now with Procore, looking at the amount of data that they're sitting on top of, the idea of scaling, the idea of sort of combining some of these other companies, making some good acquisitions. I think it becomes the future of Procore. And I think it stays in line with TUI's vision of being able to build better. Because there is a level at which, with all of the technology that goes on in the background, and some of it starts more things than it needs to, the goal of being able to build well in this time when we have to build a lot. We have to build a lot of infrastructure. We have to build a lot of housing. We have to build a lot. We need those tools. So I've not met him yet. I would hope to someday be him. Like, but looking at his background, it looks perfect, man. Like honestly, it looks like somebody we could sit down and have a good conversation with, because he was in engineering for a while, comes out of that, works with some private equity, comes out of that, works with engineering again. Like feel like it's somebody that really has some good insights to give, and hopefully we see Procore move forward. So many of us are relying on it. It needs to move forward. Did you notice, and I want to ask you this, this is a little off that subject. Did you notice in the article it mentioned that a lot of contractors, because of AI, are now taking everything into their own hands? I think that that's something that Procore needs to address directly, is to say, we realize, because that's really the contractor realizing it's not built around us. And from a trade contractor standpoint, that's a big deal. So my hope is also that they can take a real good look at themselves in the mirror and say, have we not built something that you guys are going to use? Is that why you're trying new things, or is it just that AI is attractive right now? So I think there's room. I think there's room to improve that company.
I agree with you, and we love this. I always talk. Don't look for a culture fit. Look for a culture gap and fill it. And I mean that in the experience. So his tangential experience in that prototyping and virtual and engineering, et cetera, I think brings a mindset that we need. And he's proven over time the ability to learn new markets and learn new things, but not lose the innovation and the ideas and the scale. And I think that's why he's successful scaling. So I'm with you. And I also think this is an opportunity when you change leadership. This isn't, and I don't even know this from Tui's perspective or anything, but just there's an ability to look at things that maybe were in your blind spots for so long because you have a fresh perspective, right? It's just you've been doing things and focusing on things the way you have forever. A new perspective, you're looking in the room and you're going, why is that chair where it is? It should be over here. Oh wow, I never thought of it. It's just always been there. So again, a great opportunity. Listen, man, we could go on forever. It is so awesome. Thank you for sitting down with me today, taking the time out. I know you got a lot going on, and I appreciate you. And thanks, John, for sitting down with me today.
Right on, Jeff, man. Always love talking to you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you for tuning in today to geek out for the construction technology news of the week with Jonathan Marsh. To read all our news stories, learn more about our guests, and to listen to this show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.